Good morning and welcome to Shambles Stay at Home Festival. Very, very special. It's the Josie Long birthday special episode of the Shambles Stay at Home Festival. It's what this has been building up to. If you've been following the narrative of the previous 4 weeks, there's been various little clues that have all been building up to this sudden twist of fate in which Josie Long turns out to be 38 at the end of the series. It's not just the end of the series. We'll be doing someone else on Monday because it turns out everything's been extended. So we'll probably be giving you a call and seeing if you can guest on the show before long. How are you, birthday Josie Long, there with your muffin and your tea, is it? Oh, your Grace Petrie merchandise. I hope she gave you a little bit of a kind of discount on that, because sometimes... Did you have to pay full price for the mug?
I paid double.
Oh, yeah, she is like that. She is like that. There's nothing more remarkable. A socialist on stage, a capitalist by the merchandising stall, and that's why we love her. She is so many different things. How are you feeling then?
I'm all right. I'm a bit ill. I'm feeling... Yeah. I'm fine. I've got my presents.
You've got your cough, and you always said, I remember you had that on your list of things you wanted for your birthday. I hope someone gets me a cough, you said, didn't you?
I said, I hope I wake up on my birthday in lockdown with coronavirus. That would be the dream. And lucky me. Yeah, no, I'm fine. I feel old insofar as who cares if you're 38? I'll be 39 next. Who cares? It's a nice little birthday. I had a lie-in. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just looking out. I'm trying to find some younger friends, as you know, because you're no longer any use to me whatsoever. If I ring up and go, "Hey, Josie, what do the young people think?" Go, "I don't know, but I think they've been near my door again." And then so I'm good. I watched the Mandalorian last night because finally my son broke me, and I allowed him into that world, and it's got an amazing cast. It's such an interesting thing that Jon Favreau, who of course has gone on to make things like the Iron Man film stuff, but who I remember from Swingers, which was late 90s kind of movie. So Jon Favreau's done it, and then you've got Nick Nolte's in it, and Taika Waititi is in it, and Werner Herzog is the kind of what might be considered to be mafia boss villain. So it does offer me rewards, but at the end of it, when I turn to my 12-year-old and say, well, now I think we can watch Fitzcarraldo, he does not want to watch anything about trying to create an opera house in the rainforest. I know. What is it about 12-year-olds that don't want to see lengthy Teutonic films about the creation of South American opera houses? No idea.
It's sad, isn't it?
Now, show and tell today, or is it merely you, birthday you?
It's an English muffin I made yesterday. Oh. It's disgusting. It's awful. It took me 2 hours. It's heavy. It's underbaked. It's gluten-free. It's pure. Oh, I'm so frustrated. The other week I made scones. It was the most joyful experience of my life. Just whacked them all together. Delicious. This. Unbearable. Sorry,
you missed out. Was it? Did you put in baking? Was it a lack of baking powder?
No,
I'm just wondering if that's why the lightness isn't there.
I ran out of milk, so I had water, and I think you can really feel the lack of luxury.
Well, anyway, it's nice to see you now on prison food. Anyway, and really going for the whole theme of the next 3 weeks. I opened my badge box. It's not that I've never collected badges, and yet I seem to have hundreds of badges. If you see what I mean, it's never been a deliberate action. And I found, amongst others, this is from the Curzon, I think, from a screening of Multiple Maniacs, the early John Waters movie.
Yeah.
A Dave Gorman Better World badge from his show Better World. 2 Ben Moore badges, and if people don't know the work of Ben Moore, go and find the work.
I have more trees to climb.
Well, there we go. That is the badge. I have more trees to climb. There we are. And not everything is significant, which I think is a very useful badge, especially at this time. And I never know where this came from, but I've had it for years. I'm with the Karate Kid. He's a winner. No idea where that came from. That's the original Karate Kid. Obviously not the disappointing remake. You need Pat Morita if you're going to have a Karate Kid movie.
What would it mean to be with the Karate Kid?
Well, there's a lot of painting. There's a lot of cleaning. Generally, it turns out he uses his skills as an alibi to make me do odd jobs around the house. He's learned everything from Pat Morita. He knows what he's doing. we should say, so today's show, we have Dallas Campbell, we have Tamsin Edwards, we have Ben Bailey-Smith, we have Tanita Tikaram. We will be talking about lots of different. We have also, I should mention, on Monday, because we kind of hoped this would be the last week we were going to do this, but obviously now we're going to extend it for the next 3 weeks, whether you want it or not, and watch it whether you enjoy it or not. Really punish yourselves. Add to that extra punishment by dragging out your day. And we're going to start the next week with Mark Gatiss as a kind of, because he was our first guest at the kind of proper start of it 4 weeks ago. And so Mark, and we're actually going to do that Q&A that we had, and we never got around to asking him all the questions that you sent us. So if you have more questions for Mark Gatiss, please send them to us. And we'll just quickly mention again, also the tip jar at the bottom here. If you can, if you do enjoy this and you think, oh yeah, I'll give them a small amount of money, please do. It's not money for me. It's money that will get shared around amongst some of the performers who've kind of hit the wall, some of the performers who really did rely on the day-to-day gigs to pay their bills, and also some of the art centres out there, which again, is we're already seeing them closing down. And this week we were able to give some money to the Rondo in Bath and the Old Fast Station in Oxford and the Little Angel Puppet Theatre, and hopefully by the end of kind of like, again, in about 2 weeks time, we'll have built up enough money to send that off to some other art centres as well and other parts of the UK. So I hope you enjoy the show, and can we have some of your money? And that is the housekeeping done.
Beautiful. So, I'm sorry, because I really am coughing a lot today.
Well, not only that, you're coughing, and to make it worse, you're having a really disappointing muffin. So once you've got a tickly throat, and then you're placing things in your body that your body wants to reject for culinary reasons, that's not good. This is not the birthday face we hope to see. It's so now
I'm vital. I'm so youthful.
I'm about to broadcast something, Gigi.
So we are
joined. Just be careful. You might appear on television.
In fact, I'm not even sure if you can hear them already, because you're joined by our guest that we're going to see after Tanita's song, Ben Bailey-Smith. I can actually hear him, so I better mention, because I think everyone else could probably hear him as well. So we're going to, I don't know how this one's going to work. Basically, his webcam didn't work, so this is all very impromptu. We're going to do, because you have turned up. Hello, Ben. How are you? Oh, no, now he's muted. Now he's gone. That's fine. This is now the worst episode we've ever done. And we've now moved on to a Waitrose. Waitrose. So let's move over to Tamsin Edwards and Dallas Campbell, who are joining us, like everyone else, from their room by their bookcase. How are you both?
We're very well. We're very well.
Oh, Josie's not even taking any notice anymore.
Okay.
God, I'm a dead weight today. I am
just sit
dead
back
weight.
and relax, right?
Thank you for saying happy birthday. I really appreciate it. Hello to both of you. I'm sorry.
This has never been more Dickensian than it is today. This is definitely our Dickens special. Dallas, I wanted to ask you first of all, like a few people that I know, you're kind of adapting to this by going, right, well, what can I do? And at the moment, you're kind of working to some extent as a postman as well. I mean, obviously, most people know you from acting and science communications, stuff like that. But
most people now know me as the postman.
Yeah.
Which is good. I'm actually really enjoying it. It's quite fun. I mean, I live in an apartment building, and there are 130 apartments, and our concierge wasn't allowed to work anymore, and so the post was just building up in a big pile by the front door. So I took it upon myself because basically I don't have any other real uses in life. I thought, well, I'll be a postman.
Dallas is now Lord of the Manor.
Yeah, it's great, and it's I feel useful, and
You must know who everyone is.
I know who everyone is. I've been steaming open mail. I've been holding it up to the light, so I know everyone's business, and it's great.
Oh, another Amazon package. Ooh.
Yeah, no. I've been really enjoying it. I really like it. It's a bit of exercise. I've got to walk up a lot of stairs. I've got to put all the letters and things in numerical order, so mentally it keeps me alive. It's all good. There's no bad things about being a postman.
This has a real to your dad just after he's retired vibe, this conversation.
Yes. Actually, funny enough, when my
gives
dad
me a bit of structure.
Yeah, my dad, really interestingly, my dad was a pilot. He was an airline pilot, and he retired quite young. I think he was 55 maybe when he retired. Of course, he was young, and his whole life had been so structured around working for the airline. He knew where he had to be at a certain time. He knew around the area, everything was done in a certain order. And then suddenly he was just cast adrift into this world that he knew nothing about. And he went properly crazy. He had a bit of a breakdown. And so eventually, he didn't know what to do with himself and had a bit of a crisis. And so went to work just in the local petrol station, in the local Shell petrol station. And that was it. It sort of sorted him out. Having work and doing something that's useful, it doesn't matter what it is. It's just, humans like it. We like the routine, and we like to know that we belong somewhere. And so, it's been really, I've been freelance my whole life. And actually, having something like just doing a post round and sort of talking to people and helping people and chatting and doing all that, it's been brilliant.
How's your whistling?
Nice.
Is your whistling any good?
My whistling, it's not bad. My whistling's not bad. And I'm quite tuneless, as is the correct thing. And I'm kind to animals as well. So the odd dog and cat that I meet is...
And fox.
And fox, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard they've become. I've been reading about the fact the urban foxes really are now. This is ours now. We've really got, and there's a certain kind of, the kind of arrogance one would normally see in a Charlton Heston film of the early 70s about him waking up in a world run by foxes. There is an interesting tradition, though, of in terms of postmen. There are some, like I was thinking, Dan Rhodes, who is a wonderful author, also a postman. C.J. Stone, who wrote, amongst other things, Fierce Dancing, and most of the postmen that I know have had. You find out that they were in a band, or they are in a band, or there seems to be an interesting level of creativity that can also, it seems to be chosen by some people as like kind of right. I think I'm still going to have enough time to create that thing. And also it's one of the things that I find sad about the way, since the kind of privatisation, and now that I don't know about you, but around where I live, there's not a regular postman. We used to have a regular postman called Phil, and he was brilliant. And Phil's a big cricket fan. He once I was going off to interview Mike Brearley, and he gave me a copy of a Mike Brearley book. He said, "Don't lose it. Can you get it signed?" Right? And the communication that people have, especially people who are not just in this period of time, those people who spend a lot of their life being housebound, being isolated, I think that was a great thing. And I think it's a real pity that there is a loss of that communication. And why it's changed, I don't know. For what private reasons of the privatisation, they've ruined that.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. I agree, and it's really I like it because it's social as well. I get to talk to all kinds of people, and actually, when the Royal Mail, I made the Royal Mail woman who comes and drops all the sort of packages off. We have great long conversations. She's a bit of a conspiracy theorist. She's gone into the whole 5G world, which is a bit kind of strange, but that's okay. But we have these big we've got into some quite big subjects, science, Dostoevsky. We've been talking about recently, and it's been nice.
Science is a big subject, isn't it?
It's quite. Got all kinds of bits and little avenues you can go down, which is why I like it.
We've got a regular postman. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sometimes I think there's too much of it.
I think I think you're never going to get to the end of it, are you? What's the point of that? What's the point of a subject you can't get to the end of?
Ending. It just needs a nice, neat ending.
Exactly. The kind of narrative arc needs to kind of resolve at the end of Act 7, and it's sort of not. It's sort of left hanging, a bit like The Mandalorian.
Yeah. Oh no! Don't tell me that. I'm not going to have to drag myself through that, and then it's going to have a. Oh.
I'm not going to watch it. I refuse to watch it. I have no interest in it whatsoever. Actually.
I was going to ask you, Tamsin, because working in it's been very strange in academia. I know during a period of time where basically there was a strike, and the moment that ended, then everything went into isolation, and everyone in your world trying to juggle that way of making sure that all of those people, that you've been teaching, etc. So how has that transition how has it been for you?
I mean, my inbox is even more of a disaster than usual. I've been amazed at how well a lot of students have adapted to this kind of. I mean, they had incredible disruption. They all got flung to the far corner of the earth. They had to pack up their accommodation, or they went home without their stuff, and they've got to come back later and figure out whether to still pay for accommodation. They're trying to study with, little brothers and sisters around, and I think the thing that's the hardest is so many of them have been affected by COVID in their family as well. Like, my heart is absolutely broken by some of the stories of their parents and grandparents, like, really seriously ill. They're trying to juggle sort of study. They're apologizing to me for not doing something when, it's because someone's, incredibly ill in their family. And so they're really doing their best, bless them, and just trying to get there. And we're trying to work out how to obviously do remote teaching next year as well, so that any international students that in their respective countries or even don't come into London from other parts of the UK, we can still teach them remotely.
And I wanted to ask you about, talking before we went on air, about conspiracy theories. Now, you've, of course, been, studying the science around climate change for a long period of time, and you must have seen over that period of time the change in the conspiracy theories around that. I mean, certainly I noticed. I remember, some of the people that, for instance, on social media used to just seem like, oh, I can see maybe they're a bit skeptical about it all. And then there's a certain jumping off point where you go, and now it appears to have become, just an incredible level of fury and a refusal to take on evidence. So I just want, do you feel from looking at that world that's helped in any way with understanding what's going on now with some of the conspiracy theories?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think it's probably confirmed what I already know, is that it's almost impossible to change people's minds. And, I mean, the levels of different kinds of climate skepticism and sort of contrarian sort of views on climate change, I don't think they really change through time in individuals. I think that different individuals kind of step in and out of the debate more. So the ones who really think that the kind of hardline CO2 isn't a greenhouse gas, fully kind of, it doesn't have any warming effect at all, kind of paid up, this is all nonsense people. They were kind of quite big a while ago, sort of faded out, and then kind of came back more with the Trump sort of side of things. But then some of the ones who are more kind of close to the mainstream climate views, but just a bit skeptical about the policy and the details of the climate change, a lot of them have kind of stepped back in recent years. I think it's partly they kind of got tired of it. I think partly the way that society is seeing climate change has it's obviously really taken off with kind of people wanting to take action in the last year or so. So I think for whatever reason, whether it's because they are cross or fed up or feel they're not winning the argument or whatever, they've kind of a lot of them have kind of slightly taken a step back.
I think in a way, like, people, because I don't know, or maybe it's already happening and I'm too disconnected, but at some point, someone will be able to very clearly see what money went in at what points to sort of astroturf climate change denial, because I feel like it's not something that is organic, really. It's something that was very clearly, like, created to make sure that climate scientists were stymied and that policy didn't change. What? And I feel like maybe now, because reality is biased, the truth is around us, it's harder for people to kind of participate in something that isn't organic and is wrong.
Well, there's obviously a lot of research been done into how the thing got polarised in the first place. I mean, it's definitely not as simple as kind of everyone is a skeptic.
Logic. If logic didn't get them to that position to begin with, logic's not going to get them out of it.
And that's what I was going to say. It's not that people are changing their minds now. It's that they feel that they are, not winning the battle or whatever, because, Greta Thunberg and Extinction Rebellion and net zero targets and all of this stuff is sort of taking the lead, and they feel outside of that and kind of ostracized by that debate. And so it's, in some senses kind of stepping back from it. It's not that people are changing their minds, I don't think.
Right.
I wondered what your opinion is.
That was my conspiracy theory on conspiracy theories. That was my, I've solved it.
Conspiracy theorists, because we're all human beings. We all selectively pick things that we agree with,
I mean, there's obviously, there's some overlaps again with the cultural stuff around people who are more likely to be skeptical about or disagree with big government action on climate change might be then also skeptical of big economic lockdowns on coronavirus that hurt the economy and restrict freedoms. We've seen a lot of that already, haven't we? And then in terms of the more hardcore end, someone like Piers Corbyn, Jeremy Corbyn's brother, who's a really
weather guy.
Yeah, he's
weather skeptic
who really, really thinks CO2 isn't a greenhouse gas at all. He also has tweeted about the 5G conspiracy. So there's,
it must be hard at Christmas. It's not going to be an easy Christmas dinner. Do you know what I mean? Because he's not.
Met him the other day.
But there's not like a one-to-one correlation of like if you don't like climate change and climate action, then you are against action on coronavirus.
But there is a massive Venn diagram between all these conspiracy theories. If you're a 5G conspiracy theorist, you probably also believe in chemtrails, and you will also believe in the deep state, and you'll also believe in satanic paedophile groups in secret tunnels in America.
But I mean,
they all feed into each other.
But I think the common theme is things like lack of control over your own life.
Yeah.
And that you're trying to sort of regain a sense of like authority and knowledge and control over your environment. I think that's what a lot of conspiracists probably have in common, don't they? Of that, actually, that the elite or the scientists or the politicians are in control, and so it's a way of regaining control, saying, but I know what's really going on, and I know how things really are, and it's people who don't have power.
If we all just got an allotment, I feel like these things would go. If we all just tended an allotment, we'd all be fine.
It does lead to an incredible, because it allows you not to have to read anything that's really hard, I think, once you go, the moon landings are a lie. But once you can take something as an enormous piece of history with that amount of evidence, once you can go, I don't wish to believe that, as you said, that bit means that you can then say nothing is true. So you only have to read Nexus magazine, which is a tremendously tiresome magazine, and that's it. You never have to you never have to have doubt about your ability to understand things, because you can see deeply. You can see more than anyone else.
Exactly, and they all claim to be open-minded. We're the open-minded one. You scientists are the closed-minded ones, and it's really interesting. I went to a couple of years ago. I went to the Flat Earth Convention in Birmingham to try and see what was going on. And it was absolutely fascinating because they all, they do that. It's just like going to a normal scientific academic lecture. It's a stuffy room full of stuffy people, and the AV doesn't work properly, and there's all that stuff in a site, and they use the language of science. It's all couched in scientific language, and they talk about the scientific method, and they talk about Popper and falsification, all this kind of stuff. But actually, it's not that they don't like science. It's just they don't like scientists, because your evidence is the wrong evidence, and your experimental evidence doesn't mean anything, because I've done my own experimental evidence, and we can see quite clearly
and you fiddle the results
code.
Because you have this particular agenda.
And it's a deep mistrust of authority seems to be where it comes from. And of course, now we have the internet, all these kind of different fractured groups. And I was thinking about Robin, actually, because I remember you did a program about Hollow Earth, about people who believe that hollow
Earth,
that Hollow Earth rabbit hole.
It's fun.
Really sorry.
I have to explain the Hollow Earth.
So that before there were flat earthers, before this whole newfangled flat Earth thing we've had the last few years, there was a whole group that believed that the Earth was hollow, and not only hollow. Why? Because clearly there's the elites and the paedophiles and the flying saucers all inhabit this hollow Earth.
What's going on in the middle?
Well, I'll show you. Hang on, I'll show you what's
going on. This quite, yeah.
I didn't start believing a new Earth, like square Earth.
I thought it was supposed to
I've got all the scientific literature.
Wow.
So this is this is basic. This is the sort of classic Hollow Earth. That's what's going on in the middle.
Oh, well, it's very compelling, actually. Now I've seen the evidence.
And anyway, this is all
There's a sun inside.
But not only they've had conversations with the people who live there. Anyway. But this was kind of quite big, obviously, sort of pre-internet, and I feel sorry for the Hollow Earthers because they've been rather usurped by the publicity of the Flat Earthers, and I'd kind of like to see the Flat Earthers and the Hollow Earthers get together. But when we were at the Flat Earth conference, it was interesting because I was there with some PhD astrophysicists, and there was a sort of they were challenged to a debate, and the interesting thing was that the PhD astrophysicists were really bad at explaining why the Earth is round, because that's not what they do all day. They just don't have they were a bit, whereas the flat earthers, because they spend all their time talking about this in the way that they do, they kind of sort of won the argument, and it was just this kind of rhetorical nonsense that went on, and I don't know, it was a strange event, because there's nothing you can say logically that can talk anyone out of believing that the Earth is flat.
Well, again, they don't believe anyone's been into space, and they believe if they have been into space, everything is those who do. It's like that moon landing that some people now, some moon hoaxers now do believe that yes, people did go to the moon, but not the people you've seen, because they all died on the moon. So there's all of these again, it's that bit that rather than make the picture simpler in the same way as when you look at the Ptolemaic kind of view of the universe, to make all of the movements of the things that we see work, it has to get more and more convoluted. Whereas once you remove us from being the center of of the universe, then you go, it's that ellipse and it's that ellipse. No, it's
exactly. There are two problems with the whole kind of trying to sort of give people the scientific facts. Is partly what we were saying about actually the questions that are asked and the way that they're asked can be real curveballs, because you're so used to explaining the frontiers of knowledge that you forget how to actually persuade someone on the basics. Secondly, facts don't change minds, as we really, really know. Just throwing facts at people don't change their minds at all. But I think no, I forgot what I was going to say. I had a really good.
What's it to do with the hollow Earth?
I'll tell you what. We'll go over to Ben quickly. We've got, Ben's got his webcam working in his hammock now. The hammock cam is up.
Yeah, he's in the hammock. It's been just so delightful to see him just travelling out, finding the hammock and getting installed in the hammock during the conversation.
Yeah, the rest of the audience haven't been able to see this, but we can always see at home what everyone else is doing. And Ben's set up his cinematography for the hammock cam has been absolutely wonderful. How are you doing, Ben? Oh, the cinematography is now. There we go.
Amazing. Ben, he can keep himself.
Ben,
I can see you.
Ben, we see your finger. We get.
Hold on. There we go. Now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Oh,
now you wanted to leap in on this technology as well.
Yeah, I've just thought it was fascinating, because especially when you started talking about the cultural side of it, because I mean, I couldn't agree more. I remember when I think I was about to turn 20, and I joined a rap group, my first ever rap group. I was so excited to be drafted into this group of young MCs. And the first day we went to record around at someone's house, the sort of elder statesman of the group said, now you're part of the group, we can let you in to what's really going on behind the matrix. And he pulled out this David Icke book.
No!
And started explaining to me that all the royal family were lizards, right? And being young and impressionable, I didn't buy any of it, but I didn't want to feel out of the group. Now, this group was young, black, working class, struggling in various ways, for family members in various difficult situations, and everybody smoked a lot of very strong, high-grade marijuana, right? I didn't really want to go against them, so I was just sort of ummed and ahed my way around it. And in the end, I was actually dragged to see David Icke at Brixton Academy. And he performed.
Academy.
Yeah, and let me tell you something really interesting, Josie. I looked around that crowd and I was like, there's so many black people here. It really blew my mind to see this goalkeeper from Coventry talk about the all the key figures in authority actually being lizards. And even then, as a youngster who hadn't thought too deeply about this stuff, I thought, fuck, man. Oh, sorry. I thought, geez, people are really searching for something to make what they see as unfair in their life seem like, okay, that's, that justifies, I get it now. This is why we're screwed, because why would these people care about it? And I think you're exactly right, saying that it ties in with all this stuff. Nothing can be ordinary. It can't be a logical answer. It has to be illogical or extraordinary. In the same way that, Princess Diana couldn't have just died in a car crash because she was an extraordinary person. John Lennon couldn't just have been shot. Bob Marley had to have been poisoned by the CIA, because they are extraordinary people, so they can't have ordinary endings to their stories, you know? And I think it all ties in, that cultural thing of people searching for something more rather than just going, well, maybe it's this simple answer, which of course in scientific terms is always the best theory, like just go for the one that makes the most logical sense. But if that doesn't tie into how maybe cheated you feel or how removed from what you see as a better life for yourself, if it doesn't tie into that, then I think you immediately look for something else, you know? And yeah, I find all that stuff fascinating. I mean, the best one I heard last week was, see when they're all clapping at 8:00, yeah? Covering the sound of the drilling, mate. Oh, good. Covering the sound of the drilling.
Why would they only drill for 5 minutes at 8 p.m?
I love it.
I love it. When all the little robots came out of the 5G masts. The little micro robots that go into your bloodstream to manipulate you that the 5G masts send out. But it is that's an interesting thing you say, because I know that in certain studies of conspiracy theories, when you look certainly in kind of African American communities, because of things like I never know if it's Tuskegee or Tuskegee, study where there were a bunch of men who basically thought they were being treated for syphilis and they weren't. Here was a specific group that had been chosen to then, be put through a study so that we could. So it means that once you know that that's happened, you go, well, hang on a minute. If that's happened, then that can be the gateway into every single other theory. And I think the worst thing about those theories is that they are a distraction from the reality of how you might actually be able to challenge what is going on. Instead, you are so concentrating on what David Icke, that 100% rubbish.
100%.
I also don't know what you found. Having seen David Icke live, I mean, I think Brixton, I think he's got work.
Has everyone been to see David Icke except me?
I met David Icke a few years ago, and he has very weird sweat, very shiny. And I did say to him, I said, why do you always bring up the lizard bit? I said, because, some of your arguments, and this was quite a while ago, I said, some of your arguments I can imagine would be quite compelling to people, but I would imagine there'd be a drop-off at the lizard moment. But he was very much wedded to it. And but what I always find interesting is actually that I don't find him a compelling speaker to watch either. I think he's every time he starts on something interesting, you then go, wow, how amazingly quickly he then got to the fact that the moon is a spaceship. That's what I find so amazing, is the number of, it's not just like he's got a singular idea, it's everything that Dallas and I would have read when we were growing up, all those
of course
from the 60s
yeah,
and 70s.
It's tied into all of that.
The interesting thing, David Icke doesn't talk about lizards anymore. If you look at this more recent stuff, there's been a massive shift away from the whole kind of lizard, the moon is a spaceship thing, that's quite entertaining. But he's gone down he's gone very, very political now. It's gone very, very right wing. It's all about.
Do you think he looks back at his early work and he's like, oh, no, don't look at those. No.
He prefaces everything he says. I met David Icke actually with Ken Campbell many years ago. He prefaces everything he talks about now saying, I've been right for the last 30 years. So he's a massive self-promoter. But a bit like kind of looking at Nostradamus, it only comes right after the event. You never look at Nostradamus and go, oh, look, this is going to happen. You only ever look at Nostradamus and go, oh, look, I can see a link. I can see the joining the dots between what's actually happened and what Nostradamus sort of said.
Yeah.
Like stuff is a bit like that.
Also, if you say everything, if you say literally everything, it's the stopped clock right, twice a day. That if you look at everything that he said, yes, you will find, oh, that's interesting. There we are. Yeah. How on earth did you know in hindsight?
But you're right. Yeah, he does. You're right, Robin. He says absolutely everything, and his whole thing is called dot connector. That's his kind of strap line. And the thing is about joining the dots. It's about looking up at the sky and seeing the stars. Our ancestors would look at the stars and draw dots and see patterns. They'd see a plough, they'd see Orion, and they'd make stories about it. And the thing is with joining dots, if you don't have a pattern, if you don't have the numbers to go from 1 to 2 that makes up a picture of a giraffe, you can just make anything you want. And that's exactly kind of what the David Icke oeuvre is really about.
Yeah, and he's not a compelling speaker, Robin. You're exactly right. And what's fascinating about that is that pattern, especially with what you were saying about not joining the dots. that pattern, along with being a non-interesting speaker, public speaker, it really, sorry, my cat's jumping about like a maniac. It reminds me of all sorts of people now who jump on populist ideas. You look at Trump. He's not a great speaker. He'll just say, I'm the goodest speaker there is. But he will literally throw anything at it. Say one thing today, next thing tomorrow, and he has a lot of conspiracy theorists that love him because he just jumps on that. It's the media. It's all, everything's lies. It's all lies. Which that's a compelling idea, not said in a compelling way by a compelling orator, but that's a compelling idea. What if all of that stuff that you read is nonsense? It's all lies. It's all lies. That works so well for such a huge percentage of that population. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in November after all of this, because obviously he ties all of this in, doesn't he? Well, quite nicely, the corona
he's
stuff.
He's going to get back in, isn't he? That's what's going to happen.
I was going to say about trust. About the thing I was going to say earlier was about asking the question: what is it? What's that first tipping point that sends someone down that road? What's that first YouTube video? That first article? That first conversation with someone? Usually, the kind of all the evidence is that it's about. Often it's someone that you trust, someone that's like you, someone that has the same kind of identity as you. So what's interesting, I guess, is where it's not that where Trump is appealing to people who are not like him, where David Icke is appealing to people who are not like him. What is it there? Is it the compelling story? Because it resonates with something else that someone you did trust and did identify with? Was it a similar story? I mean, I think, or was it purely a kind of factual thing that you rationally thought, this doesn't make sense? That sometimes happens as well. I mean, I think that's happened a lot of scientists.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said at the start, is there also a class link? Is there a cultural link? Is there a racial link? Because now with coronavirus, we're seeing it in the UK and even more so in America, where there's huge Black or Latino areas or even ghettos. They're disproportionately ethnic minorities are getting this and suffering from it and dying from it. So that's another thing that you can tie in and go, you see, it's against us. It's against us. There are obviously various reasons why ethnic minorities are getting it worse than others, and particular lower working class ethnic minorities as well, because of the standard of living. They might not want to be inside. They live in bigger families in small spaces, so they're forced out of the house and whatnot. And then also, especially in America and African American communities, a disproportionate amount of diabetes, hypertension, high blood pressure. And from what I've understood from the WHO, those three things, either a combination of them or just one of them, is going to be a complication if you get this bug. So that's really upsetting, and it really makes me think, being Black and working class, how come none of this? I don't get involved in these conspiracies. I don't feel touched by them, and I realize I rapped about tea, and now I live in a hammock with my big garden, and I'm not involved anymore, so I think now I can look at it and feel pained by it, but removed from it, and that makes me wonder, oh my God, there's a class element to this too.
When I think class in the media especially, I think there's so few people who don't come from money and privilege in the media, but the problem is you want then to carry that identity with you for your whole life and career, and you have to sort of temper this feeling of, well, actually I am leading a very different, rarefied, privileged life now due to the fact that I make a living doing something I love on my own terms. But I still carry that and understand that in a way that it isn't the case for people who never came from it. And that feeling of like detachment and I'm just joining in with that more than anything. I don't know what kind of point I'm making, but it's a very odd place to be, I guess.
Yeah, it's a privilege issue, isn't it?
Yeah, because I want to say things like on stage, all comedians who say they're working class, you're not working class anymore. No. You do this, but at the same time, you sort of are and will be forever because you understand and you have connections and you aren't so entrenched in privilege that things won't affect you and your family and stuff like that. It's interesting.
So you, Tamsin, you had something you wanted to.
Well, I was just actually going to add to your list, Ben, of I think something that people really don't realise widely in this country is the degree of water poverty in the US, exactly affecting, as you say, black working class people. There was a programme on a feature on the Today programme this morning about Detroit about this. People who've had their water cut off because they haven't paid the bills, so cannot wash their hands for coronavirus and are not getting that water supply reinstated. This is something one of my colleagues at King's works on, actually, Katie Meehan, is like it's. I don't know, tens and hundreds of thousands of people in America, mostly black working class people, don't have running water. I mean, that structural kind of inequality can affect class so much. It's staggering. We have no idea that this exists, I think, in this country.
It's the city of Flint, Michigan, that still doesn't have clean running water, isn't it? And it's been years and years.
Yeah.
Flint.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a quick break while Ben's just working on his connection, and we're going to go over to someone who I'm very pleased recorded a song for us earlier this week, and she is a brilliant singer-songwriter, one of my favourites. She wrote a wonderful song called Glass Love Train, which is what if Philip Glass wrote a love song. This is not what she's going to be doing today, but she's a brilliant singer-songwriter, and I'm sure you know her. Her name is Tanita Tikaram, and here she is.
Hello everyone, my name is Tanita Tikaram, and I'm going to sing you a song. Thank you for inviting me to sing even. And so this song is called Food on My Table, and it's really about giving somebody something and then taking it away, which is really naughty.
I've been played for a fool.
on loving you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome. That was Tanita Tikaram, and thank you very much for doing that, Tanita. She was brilliant. It was lovely. We had her at the Christmas show that I put on with Brian Cox every year in Hammersmith. Last year she came along, and we also had Helen Sharman, the first British astronaut, was there, and she and they'd never met. But Helen took 2 Tanita Tikaram songs up with her for when she went up, and it was just on Mia, and on the way back, I think it's World Outside Your Window. I can't.
Wow.
But she actually was listening to that song as
That's mad.
Approach the world again. What a love kind of
somebody loving your work and taking it to space. That's astonishing.
And that work then also made her vision of space change. That lovely meeting of art and science, where those 2 things, as they went on together, just kind of enlarged the whole potential of that vision. It was lovely. Right, we've not got long, so I know first of all that both Dallas and Tamsin, you have a show and tell for us.
Yeah. So our show and tell is it's the entire Werner Herzog oeuvre. It's every Werner Herzog film, but this one in particular,
which I've still not watched all of. I started that.
Can I just tell this?
Yeah.
So this is what started us off. This is Encounters at the End of the World, and so my stepmom actually gave me this many years ago, because I was starting to do research into Antarctica and what Antarctica was going to do in the future. And she said, I thought I'd get you this film. It's about some scientists sort of overwintering in Antarctica and going a bit crazy. Didn't think much of it, sort of sat on the shelf for probably a year and a half, something like that, 2 years. And then somehow dug it up to watch with Dallas a few years ago. And we were absolutely floored by it. What I loved is in every single scene, we reacted in exactly the same way to this film. It's this most beautiful. So it sounds like a film about the crazy scientists going crazy in Antarctica. It's so much more than that. It's about the beauty and wonder of Antarctica, and there are incredible scenes diving under the ice shelves, this sort of cathedral spaces with Russian choral music sort of booming away. There's kind of incredible moments of comedy and lightness where, they're sort of, it's all about the misfits that, drop to the bottom of the world.
It's every Herzog theme that you're familiar with, if you know that, Herzog films, but within this extraordinary documentary. And it's not really a documentary. It's that Herzog playfulness between fact and fiction that he's so good. He explores this kind of weird boundary. And it's interesting because very often I've actually spoken to scientists about this, and a lot of scientists don't like it because it's not reportage of what science is. And they get very, very cross. But there's Herzog talking about how long. Can I read you a little passage? Or
please, yeah.
I don't want to. But this is sort of Herzog talking about why he went and made this film. Henry Kaiser, who was a cinematographer, Henry told me about the Antarctic Artists and Writers program of the National Science Foundation, to which anybody can apply. And this is, I should do it in his voice, this was fortunate as not being a pilot, scientist, mechanic, or chef. I had little to contribute to the community in Antarctica. I made a strange and wild application, explaining that though I was curious about insanity amongst mammals, and specifically derangement in penguins, I wasn't going to make a film about the animals. My application made no secret of the fact that I was interested in a certain species of ants that kept flocks of plant lice as slaves, milking them for droplets of glucose, and wondered why a sophisticated animal like a chimpanzee doesn't utilize inferior creatures, for example, straddling a goat and riding off into the sunset. To my surprise, the National Science Foundation invited me down. There are Nobel Prize winners lined up hoping to go to Antarctica, so I had no idea why my application was successful. Once I finished the film, but before I screened it to anyone, the foundation told me they hoped it could be used as an educational tool. I told them perhaps in a poetry class, but probably not a scientific one. Anyway, that was it.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's a brilliant, brilliant film, and it's I tell you what it was. It kind of just reminded both of us about the possibilities of talking about science and what it is. It's not just limited to the explanation of facts and the delivery of facts. You know, there is this great poetry, this great sense of wonder, this great sense of possibility about the journey of science and scientists in particular.
And he constructs these stories. I mean, he creates situations that are entirely false to make a truer point. Yeah. So there's a famous part with this deranged penguin sort of wandering off towards. Yeah. I mean, it's just a lie, you know. It was just a penguin randomly wandering, but he creates this greater point about the derangement of the penguin. There are these scientists lying with their ears to the ice shelf with the ocean underneath, apparently listening to the creaks of the ice and the sounds of the ocean underneath. I mean, he just got the scientists to lie on the floor. I mean, they can't, you know, they're not, it's just creating the image of the scientists hearing these noises, but they're just playing a part for Herzog. It's the most extraordinary film. And we went really deep with Herzog when...
I did it for Mastermind. I did Herzog for Mastermind. Yeah, so I went down the Herzog rabbit hole. I went deep because he'd made 72 films at that point, and I'd watched every single Herzog film. Wow. And I came out of the rabbit hole a sort of changed person. Wow. But in moments of crisis, I go down the Herzog rabbit hole again. We've gone down it again. We watched Strojek the other day, which is Bruno S. It's the most incredible film. Hearts of Glass, which is the one where he hypnotized all the actors. Absolutely fantastic. So
yeah, it's the sort of fact and fiction that, but also the very silly and the very serious. I think one of my favorite lines is, "I hate the sunlight to fall on my celluloid or on my skin." He's so utterly serious, but so when he's being utterly serious, and
if you guys Herzog completists, you need to watch the Madagascar cartoon spin-off. Penguins of Madagascar, because he spoofs the Encounters movie himself on the Penguins film, narrating the opening with the penguins. You know those silly penguins from Madagascar, and he narrates and he spoofs himself and Encounters in the opening narration to that film. It's fantastic. Look at the penguins. Look at their fluffy little bum-bums. It's incredible.
This is such a treat for the mums and dads. And so appreciated.
One more thing about the penguin. The thing that we realised when we were listening to old interviews and panels and stuff with him, we realised listening to this one completely random interview with Herzog, he talked about Kinski, you know, Klaus Kinski that he worked with all the time. And we realized, and he said, well, I was trying, which was the film?
Cobra Verde.
Cobra Verde. And at the end of the film, he said, with Klaus Kinski, you know, I wanted him, you know, the scene, he's sort of pulling the boat at the seaside and it's this ending, but that's not the ending that I wanted. I wanted Kinski to wander deranged into the mountains, right? Cobra Verde was made several years before Encounters. What we realized later is that must be Herzog's revenge on Kinski. And he basically takes the ending he wanted with Cobra Verde, with Kinski in it, which Kinski refused to do, and made him the penguin wandering deranged towards the mountains about 6 years ago.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. That was a great show and tell. Keep up to date with everything that both Dallas and Tamsin are doing, and there's Tamsin. There's always interesting research work and information for, and Dallas is. Well, we're going to work on something involving UFOs soon as well, aren't we? We'll talk about that at the time. Ben, I just quickly mentioned you. Our last time I bumped into you was just before Christmas, and you were entirely unrecognisable. You had glasses and a moustache. I walked into a pub, the Bricklayer's Arms, with my mate Michael Legg, and we walked to the bar, and the bloke just went, "All right, you two," and we were like, "Oh, it's just some guy with a moustache," you know, and then
trying to pick us up.
And you were, of course, Michael and me have always, you know, the potency of these two elderly men with their psoriasis, as you know, the Rent voice team has never been more enlivened than by us two. But that sounds you. So that's a film all about basically Dennis Nilsson that you.
That's right. You finished it, didn't you? Yeah, just in time. So and it's now fully edited, so it will be ready to depress everybody at some stage soon. But it's actually a 3-parter. Myself, Daniel Mays, David Tennant. It's actually an incredible cast. Some of the best actors I've ever worked with. Tennant is the creepiest Nilsson you've ever seen. It's a perfect casting.
I feel like David Tennant, because he was Doctor Who, most of the parts he plays now are GPs who are evil, because he's trying to low-key be like, I'm a bad doctor, I'm a bad doctor.
There's an interesting transitionary one, which is when he plays R.D. Lang. Which is not a perfect film, but so the first half of the film in particular about R.D. Lang, who was a very interesting. The Divided Self is his most famous work. Very interesting kind of story of ideas of psychiatry in the 60s and 70s. But he's really great in that, and that might be the transition between good doctor, bad doctor. So he's
interesting.
Thanks very much. We're going to go over to Ben again in a moment with his show and tell. But thank you very much, everyone, for watching. As I said, tonight there's Josie's Quarantine Comedy Club with John Luke Roberts and a whole host of guests.
Through that. Can I say what fun it's been that we've talked about so many like silly and interesting and ridiculous things for my birthday show.
Yeah, happy birthday.
And also on Sunday Science Q&A at 3:00. And this week we have Helen Chersky and Richard Wiseman and Sophie Scott. So quite a lot of neuroscience, psychology. If you have questions, also physics as well with Helen, obviously. If you have any questions for that, send those questions in. And tomorrow there is, before the Sunday 3 p.m. one, there is the Kids Science Club at 11 a.m. My God, do you know what? I don't think I've ever worked so hard for no money. Oh yeah, I have. I've been pretty long enough. And then on Monday we have Mark Gatiss to start the next week of shows. Mark is going to answer all your Q&As. Please remember, we have a tip jar at the bottom. We are collecting money to try and make a resource for some of the performers who have been hit very hard by this situation, and also to try and help give some funding to some of the art centres that are also such important social hubs in a lot of the smaller communities and all over the place as well. So I hope that you are able to give something. If you're not, that's also fine as well. I hope you enjoyed the connection that we all had this morning talking about the moon as a spaceship and the tiny robots that are coming out them 5G masts. Stay with the Karate Kid. Remember that. You want to be on his side. Ben, what is your show and tell?
Well, I'm black and working class. I have a piano in my spacious living room, and I'm learning a classical piece for grade 1. That's what you do in Corona times, isn't it? So this is terrible. I can't play the piano, but I am trying. This is a grade 1 piece called Theme, which I'm trying to learn for my exam. So here we go. I hope you can hear it. Can you hear it?
Yeah, we can hear it.
Good. Well, maybe not good. Already fine. Anyway, that's half.
This reminds me so much of my piano playing style. It's like, no, wait.
That's how I'm going to be with my examiner. No, I know this. All right, that's as much pressure. We'll do another one where I've had a drink and I'll get it right.
Okay, well, we're going to be doing someone's in the evening as well. So we'll find that one so we can do that. Thank you so much,
watched Pride and Prejudice. I watched the Joe Wright version of Pride and Prejudice yesterday. I can say that you are very accomplished.
Oh,
good accomplishments.
Wow. Thank you so much.
That was my grade 1.
Thanks very much, everyone.
It's a nice piece. Cheers, Robin.
Tamsin,
take care,
Ben.
Josie, Dallas, Tamsin. Happy birthday
on Saturday, Sunday, or Monday.
Birthday.